I'll wing it.
A kayak that is sophisticated or a kayak that is simple. You get to choose your own adventure. Oh, looky there. That's a micro bag. I hope you brought the family. This is going to be wild. Hey, this adventure is going to be amazing.
All right. Well, a little piece of Billy is still. Oh, hey. Oh, whoa. Billy, chill. All right. Little piece of Billy was still here with us today, guys, as you could hear. But obviously not see Billy because he's not here. He's out this week and next week. But Jake and I are rocking the show. What's going on, Jake?
Nothing. I'm finally back from Costa Rica, so that's exciting, I guess. Finally can get to some fishing because I have still not caught a bass of any merit in 2024. So
I'm trying to think if I have. Have I? I don't know, man. I don't think so.
It's been pretty cold up there, so
yeah, it has been cold. So, man, things are a mess here. You can see we got this. Did you see we just had the Call Me Maybe by Dark Horse Tackle, which is one of our. We had this on the screen at the very beginning. One of our things that you guys can get involved in. If you're listening to the show, watching the show today, this Call Me Maybe segment is pretty cool because if you make some comments and you're in the show, part of the show, just sitting there chilling with nothing to do anyway, and you're commenting on a topic that we want to bring you in on, we can send you the link to join the show live yourself. So it's funny that was still up there. We forgot to hide it before we hit live, but that's actually good because now you guys know the rest of the show, you could be in it. So Call Me Maybe, a cool segment we're going to do. And man, I am exhausted from those 5 weeks in a row of literally just guest after guest previewing all these events. And today's just going to be a fun, chill show. We need sort of a breather, come back down a little bit. And then we're going to get into a lot of really cool lineup of guests and show topics for the next many weeks until Shoaly Palooza. So, but you were on vacation. Yeah, I'm glad you got a break, man. That's pretty cool that you guys got down to Costa Rica and took it easy. I've never been. I want to go. My wife's been, and I want to go so bad.
Yeah, we've been twice now. This time was a lot better than the previous time. We were in the nature-y area, but I did do some kayaking on the ocean, which was wild. It was definitely a kayak adventure. It'll make you respect the water, spending some time in actual ocean current because it's not for the faint of heart because the ocean is relentless.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is relentless. And what I would love to do in the ocean is throw a line in, which speaking of that, this is our Lines In segment presented by Sunline. I love that SX1 braid, man. I love it. Moss green. Their fluoro is good too, but
yeah, that's what I specifically use is Sunline now.
Really?
Sniper.
Yeah, the Sniper.
Assassin. So.
Yep. You know me, I try to stay away from it when I can, but every once in a while I have to put a little fluoro on it and get a little stealthy. So every once in a while it works out. It actually won me Grand Lake Bassmaster. I was using all their fluoro on that event. So, but so yeah, Lines In. I'm glad you're doing good. We had great shows. Thank you guys for participating in all the shows, your comments, your questions. So many people signed up, I should say, for events already. That's pretty cool because you're guaranteed to get that $100 gift bag, which is awesome. It's going to have products from all of our sponsors in there, or many of the sponsors, I should say. And I was encouraged and impressed to see that many signups. I think we have nearly 25 unique individuals for Shoaly Palooza. About 20, a little over 20, maybe 20 in the individual division, and then some in the team. So that's pretty good considering we have, 3 months?
Yeah, I mean, kayak anglers are procrastinators. I'm sitting here thinking, am I going to do Lake Murray next weekend? And it's the fact that I'm still considering it is just, I think it plays into how kayak angling tournament signups are because, we wait till the last minute, almost exclusively. I know that's a nightmare for tournament directors, but at the same time, we offer an incentive to sign up early, so it's worth it.
This we do. We offer an incentive. The $100 bag is definitely going to have some cool stuff in there. It's worth your time to get it. And that helps us kind of know, it helps everybody. Who does it not help? It helps us know how many people are coming, which helps the local community that's, bringing us there better plan and prepare. It also helps you guys, the anglers, because the more people that enter the event, the bigger the party. Okay. This is a party / tournament. So the bigger the party, bigger the festival, right? So, and then also the more people sign up once they start seeing it's going to, be a lot of people in the tournament, then it's kind of nice because more people start signing up, which means bigger payouts for everybody. So we all win. No one loses. Now here's something to note on that, which can actually take us into the news and notes segment here. If I can find that. Man, where's Billy when we need him? Hitting all this stuff, keeping us on track. So the news and notes segment, I was going to say that, what was I just talking about? I just lost my train of thought. What was it about the, just somebody out there help us out. Losing train of thoughts. The signups. Oh yes. Sign-ups. What's important, why I switched to news and notes. You can transfer. Here's the other thing, guys. If you sign up now for any of the events to make sure you get that $100 gift back, because trust me, I know things come up. You're not sure if you're going to make it. You're nervous about that. Well, good news for you. We've outsourced all of our tournament management stuff to Amanda Brandon at Real Tournament Management. And I asked her, I said, hey, can they simply, if they sign up now, because they think they're going to go and something happens, is it easy for them to just transfer that registration to the next KAS event they can make? And worst case, if they can't make any, how late can they get a refund? And she told me that, yeah, absolutely. You can just transfer your registration to another event. And then on top of that, as long as it's at least 2 days before the tournament, she'll give you a full refund minus the Tourney X fee and the Stripe fee, which is, basically the company that transfers the money into the accounts and all that. So takes it from Tourney X. So it's probably like $9 or so, $10, something around $10, I would say. So you're getting basically a full refund, even up to 2 days until. So why in the world not register? Because you can move it or get a refund anyway. And most likely you think you're going, you're going anyway, you're going to get the $100 gift bag. So get in there and register, guys. It helps us out planning wise, build the momentum. And if you, for some reason, can't register to the last minute, don't forget, we do allow late registration. I think the fee goes up about $25. Probably not going to get a gift bag because you'll probably be outside of the top 100, but even up into the tournament week, including that Thursday opening ceremonies, check-in registration, late registration, you can check in or register as late as that day. So that's pretty cool. So trying to do everything we can to make it easy for everyone out there given schedule. So that's news and note. Any comments on that? I got some more news and notes.
No, I just, like I said, I think people are procrastinators, but I hope that this incentivizes people to kind of plan a little bit. Don't be me. Don't wait till the last minute and decide to sign up for a tournament.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it helps. I mean, it's the same for all tournaments. Everybody appreciates it. Bassmaster, KBF, Hobie, whoever you fish, all American, it doesn't matter.
Wolf of Walmart did ask, if we can't show up, is there a way to still support? And I think maybe just shouting out the tournament, stuff like that on social media, that's a great way to help, because as a new trail, it's tough, to kind of get the name out there, especially like locals that, if there's a trail coming to your local, maybe you can't make it. Like if you could spread the word locally, that's where, you're really going to hit home, because most of the mainstream guys are going to know about this, right? Like they're going to know, but like it's those local guys that maybe don't fish on a national level that may not know that this is coming to town. And that's really where, we could use the most help.
That's true. I saw Wolf of Walmart last weekend at the Columbus Fishing Expo. And, I know he's asking this question because he lives out in California. So, no events out there close to him. But, yeah, appreciate the support. As always, Wolf of Walmart. And maybe you could come on the show live today. If you're free, we can have you on. We can send you the link to the show, man. You're always a strong supporter. We love what you do and your passion for the sport and just kind of just having fun, man. You made the party at the after party. You were the life of the party for sure over there for the Dark Horse Tackle and Jigs and Big. So love Mr. Wolf of Walmart. Speaking of the Columbus Fishing Expo, while I'm in the news and notes, this weekend I will be where? Do you know, Jake? Where will I be?
The Indy Fishing Show.
You got it. Ding, ding, ding. Indy Sport Boat Show, whatever it's called. I've seen it called 3-4 different things online, but You guys can see me there. I'll be there with Alex Rudd, Gene Jensen, Mike McKinstry. So come by and see me, talk a little kayak fishing or whatever you want to talk about. Kayak Adventure Series, I'll be there. So doing seminars, doing a panel with those guys. Let's see what other news and notes. Oh, speaking of the signups too, another reason to sign up early is to kind of lock it in, get it set, so you can book your lodging. Some of these places, I'm telling you, you want to book early. Tell me if I'm wrong here, Jake. Part of doing well in a tournament can honestly be getting the right place to stay in the right location. You're more comfortable. It's part of the whole experience. And I'm telling you right now, the very first tournament I ever won, Hobie BOS on Lake Dardanelle. I mean, I was serious. I found it early, and I actually decided I'm going to stay by myself and focus on the tournament. You know what I mean? Got to bed at 8 p.m. May not happen at the Kayak Adventure Series. I get it. Probably not going to bed that early, but hey, you don't have to. You don't have to get up early anyway. It didn't start till 3 on Friday, so sleep in on Friday morning. Saturday, you will have to get up early one time, but I digress. Lodging is critical.
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with the guest who's actually going to be coming on here in a little bit yesterday, and it's funny that we brought this topic up because I was talking about the Wisconsin event, saying like, yeah, that's going to be one that you should really try to make. And I was like, if we really wanted to, we could pop over to the lacrosse even, just, remember the good times. But that got us to talking about that specific Airbnb. And on paper, you look at it, it's like, okay, the rooms are small, but the rooms don't really matter. It was the space that we had to put, what did we have there? 4 kayaks.
Everything.
Because you had 2, he had his, I had mine. We had all the stuff. We had it all laid out. We had plenty of room to charge. Plenty of room to like spread out and have our stuff there so we can conceptualize what we want to take. But the important part is even with all that was a centrally located location.
Yeah,
right?
It was.
And that was huge because do you want to wake up at 3 a.m. and drive 2 hours, up to Minnesota, or do you want to wake up and drive 30 minutes?
Exactly. No doubt about it. Centrally located is perfect, which is kind of why if you're from, far away, you don't know where the best fishing is going to be in these Kayak Adventure Series events. Just know you got an hour from the center of the radius. The center of the radius is that city or in particular the theater, exactly where our awards are going to be in the festivals, right? So you kind of want to stay in those cities, in those towns as close as you can, because you don't know where you're going to go, and it gives you the option to go wherever. But if you get lodging way on the outside of the perimeter of our radius, so to speak, you're probably never going 2 hours to the other side. It's just probably not going to happen. And that might be where you should be. So try to get lodging.
And I definitely like the Poplar Bluff event specifically. Like you want to stay in Poplar Bluff. Trust me. Being from this area, like that's where you want to be. Mm-hmm. It'll be the best lodging. And you'll be centrally located, and you can hit any of those, no problem.
And you could be there, like, if you think about it, we got an event on Thursday night, opening ceremonies, Friday morning, optional, but seminar series. Who doesn't want to hear a good seminar and learn while they kind of recover a little bit and just rest up and spool up some rods and reels and whatever. Just listen to some, Jeff Little, myself, a fisheries biologist, whoever, right? Whoever we have at each event. Dr. Mudbug, get him up there in Michigan. So we got a lot of cool speakers and more to be added, but that's Friday. Okay. And then Saturday you're back there again. So like literally Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you are going to have to drive there. So why get lodging so far away where it's going to, be difficult? So anyway, lodging, that's something I wanted to mention. Volunteers. I've never mentioned this before, Jake, but I don't know why I haven't. A lot of you guys out there are very passionate about the Kayak Adventure Series. I noticed that from the Columbus Fishing Expo with how many people came up to me. Billy was there too, by the way. And we had a good time just hanging out, talking to people about the series. But I was blown away by how many people came up to me and talked about the series. I'm starting to realize, Jake, that this right here is going to be forgotten about. It's going to be like potentially like Drew's. Like, I'm going to be like introduced, like even the Jigs and Bigs podcast. We did a podcast live at the after party and stuff. It's more like Drew from the Kayak Adventure Series is here, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just starting to realize how big this has kind of gotten, especially with GoPro coming on board and a lot of other big sponsors.
Yeah.
How big, what this has kind of turned into is pretty cool. And then this right here, this other stuff is like an afterthought to, who I am or what I've done, which is fine. But it's just kind of funny how that's worked out. But volunteers is what I wanted to mention because, you know, we're always open to anybody that wants to help. If you have time and you love this and you're passionate as I am, look, this is a startup business. This is still a business too. We got bills to pay. We got insurance. We got trophies. We got, you know, all the stuff that goes along with that, the cool things that I'm getting, the bouncy house rentals, all this stuff. There's so much that goes into it. You have, you know, website design, marketing. There's a lot, but still it is a business. And if you are passionate about it, and you want to come help a business, you know, like this early on, and that's putting on events for us to all just kind of get together, have fun, and make a cool new sort of sport and game out of this kayak fishing thing that we all love. I'm here to listen for sure. And as we grow, of course, who do you think, you know, paid opportunities are going to get, you know, divvied off to or whatever? You know, it's going to be the folks who have been working with us, helping out. So you probably have some skill sets that we could use. So if anybody wants to reach out to us, happy to see if you guys want to volunteer, even at the events. It'd be nice to have some people, you know, tearing stuff down, you know, breaking some things. There's a lot of, you know, things and moving parts here. So if you're interested, let me know. And of course, whatever we can do, extra sponsors, products, gifts, I mean, happy to do it. And if someone's going above and beyond, and we've got, like I said, a budget that just becomes available for that, we're happy to start, you know, even paying some people to help us out. So that's pretty cool. Update on volunteers. So let's see. I think that's pretty much it for the news and notes. You got anything else?
No. I think we have a pretty interesting topic to talk about today. Once Orion's in here, I think we're still waiting on him to. We're a little bit early,
well,
but
in the meantime, I could show something here. I could put something on the bottom of the screen, which, I mean, we have a lot on this StreamYard thing. It's called, here it is, the banners. Okay, I want to make sure you guys remember that Omnia Fishing is presenting sponsor of our news and notes segment here. So you can use the code KAS15. I'll just throw this up there. It's on that, even though it says Poplar Bluff, KAS15. Get you 15% off at omniafishing.com. You guys go check it out. They got an amazing new app that you should also be checking out that helps. Jeff Little showed it on the video he filmed with me on the Susquehanna, you know, the water temperature, the wind direction, all that. It's an incredible app. And obviously you get tips and tricks and tactics that are kind of locally, you know, and regionally, I should say, kind of like specific. So go check it out. omniafishing.com. Use KAS15 if you're one of those who are into saving some money. Now we can move on, if you want, Jake, to the next segment. We do have a Mythbuster. We could do Mythbuster before Ryan gets in here, because I've got a Mythbuster. Let's do it. I'm going to scroll up here to the Mythbuster. I believe, who sponsors that one? Oh, it's Boondocks. Bustin' Myths, presented by Boondocks. So here's what people came up to me at the Columbus Fishing Expo and said. They said, I probably had 3-4 people ask me this question, and I've had, I don't know, a dozen people ask me this question as well, just before the Columbus Fishing Expo. But they said, Drew, are you fishing any of the Kayak Adventure Series events? And I said, no, of course not. Like, I'm not, to me, it's of course not, because I can't be the one who makes the rules, sets the boundaries, picks the locations, and then all of a sudden gets to reap the benefits of all the stuff that I know. That would just never fly. That'd be like, I mean, not.
I mean, even I'm not going to fish it.
Yeah,
because I think that would be strange,
yeah,
especially with how many people I've talked to. You know, how many like I know a good spot to fish on the Wisconsin one with never fishing it. Like, I just don't think that would be right. You know,
no, it doesn't feel right for sure. I know that, you know, there's some other professional bass fishing organizations that have some ownership and some people that fish, but this just feels different to me. Like, I don't really think I can do it and morally, like, ethically feel like, you know, because I don't know. So basically, here's what I've done, guys, for you. I've actually fished all over the country, all over. Okay. And I've taken, with a blank slate, I said, where can I go if I have 6 bullets to fire for the 6 best places, the most adventurous, the most underutilized or never really talked about or exposed locations, and kind of pick one in each region, you know? It's basically like a national guide trip, you know what I mean? But it's a loosely guided trip, because I'm just putting you in the best locations with the best fishing and the most fun we're going to have with the theater and the towns. and all kinds of things to do for the family, as well. I can't make the fish bite your lure. I promise, like, obviously, but I can tell you this: I have put you in the spots where you've got the best chance possible to catch a lot of fish, potentially some really big fish, which is obviously going to be a good time. So it's sort of like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. We're doing our best. And speaking of this year and these 6 locations, the 2025 schedule is, I mean, dude, it's done. Like, all verbally basically committed to all the cities. It's done. And I am so excited. Again, I can't get into it, but I'm so excited about when we can announce that with you guys. It'll be early. So we're going to always try to be very early on when we announce our following year, so that it gives you guys as the anglers a jump start on planning, scheduling, things like that. So we'll be so far ahead, Jake, that if someone's getting married, they can literally be like, oh, the Kayak Adventure Series is this date. So, honey, why don't we move?
We can have our wedding on this date. We could do it at the Kayak Adventure Series opening ceremony.
That's true. Opening, closing. We can give you the stage at the theater. We'll all just be there. So anyway, but yeah, so we're going to get that schedule out super, super early every year to you guys. And I'm just so pumped about these locations. And I appreciate everyone, all the positivity and all the signups that I know we already have, and I think obviously going to have, and the turnouts we're going to have, because it gives me the confidence to go to some cooler, wilder places that might be like another 2 or 3 hours. Like, Jake, what's the difference in driving 10 hours and 12? Honestly, once you get to that point, is there much of a difference? I mean,
I know you want me to say yes, but sometimes that last 2 hours, is like, if I'm going to drive, I'll be honest though, like, if I'm going to drive 10 hours, I would drive 12 hours. There's really not much difference. Is that 2 hours great? No, but I mean, it's like not that big of a deal when you look at it from like looking at it from the whole, right? Like, if you're willing to invest like an 800-mile trip, you'll probably do like a 950-mile trip. So
yeah, it's kind of like, you sort of finish that thought, like, okay, well, what if I also told you that you were going 2 extra hours because the fishing is twice as good, and you'll be there for 4 days, 5, 6, 7 days. Obviously, most people are going to be there for 4 to 7 days. So now it's not like you're just taking a weekend trip, and a weekend trip, trust me, it's like a 5 or 6 hour drive on a Friday afternoon after work just to get to somewhere to leave again on Sunday to get home in time is like, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask. But when you're going to be there for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days, 2 more hours it's no different than launching somewhere that's going to take me 10 minutes to launch or get up a hill or a steep bank, or it's going to be a struggle, even 15 or 20 minutes to launch somewhere that's challenging because there's not a boat ramp and a parking lot right there. Compared to, okay, well, I spent an extra 10 minutes launching, because it might take you 10 minutes to launch somewhere else and it takes you 20 minutes at the challenging spot. But I just spent 10 minutes extra on the front side and the back side, putting in and taking out, total, to have an entire day's worth of better fishing. To me, that's worth it. So
yeah, I mean, someone asked me, we were talking about a guy who wants to do the Bassmaster tournaments, and he was like, yeah, I was thinking about going to Lake Murray. And I was like, well, because he didn't want to drive the extra couple hours to the Susquehanna. And I'm like, look, dude, you're going to have way more fun on the Susky.
Yeah.
Driving that extra time, you're going to catch a lot more fish and have a lot more fun at that place than you would at just like a lake. And I'm not trying to diss on the lake, but like, when you're hitting a place like the Susquehanna, which we are going to in our tournament as well, it's a whole different ball game. Like, I don't think I've ever met someone who doesn't like fishing the Susquehanna. Whereas how many people have said like, oh man, I gotta go to this random lake down in like, the Carolinas. And I'm not dissing those lakes, but like certain fisheries are they're different. It's worth the extra dive.
It's worth it. And that's what we're trying to expose, these places that have never really been hit before, but fished, and they will be worth it to take. There's a couple places in particular in my mind I'm thinking about. They're a little further, but you only live once, man. That's it. I mean, come on, guys. You only live one time, and that's what the series is about. The 6 biggest parties and the best locations in the country, the coolest theaters, the coolest things to do out in the town and out, for family outside of the towns as well. So we've got some doozies for 2025. So, and Steve Kruger's recommending Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So there's no doubt that place is unreal as well. So good tip there, Steve. Can't wait to be in Michigan and see you up there for the Wild Whitehall event. So yeah, Wolf of Walmart gets it. YOLO. I mean, it's true. It really is true. And the older you get, the more you kind of realize that. Honestly, it's like, I mean, people at the event were saying, I don't know, I want to go to Shoalipalooza, but I'm not sure. They're on the fence about Shoalipalooza. And I asked them, I said, when are you just going to randomly pick up in your car, drive 10 hours, 2 or 8 hours, I think it was 9, whatever it is. We were in Columbus, and go fish and catch a shoal bass in your life. When are you going to do it? If it's not now, you know what I mean? For the Shoalipalooza, when we're all there having a huge event, lots of fun, big party. And they're like, yeah, I'm probably never just going to randomly just hop in the car and go do that, like without a reason like this. So that's kind of what we're doing for every part of the country at every festival and event. It's like, it's too short. And honestly, I know people are debating, there's a lot of local tournaments going on. We're not trying to detract, but just remember, the local events are going to always still be at the local normal spots that they're at every year. Pretty much they rotate maybe every couple of years, but most of your local events are local and they're going to hit the same bodies of water, which you've already probably fished and been there, done that. So I'm just saying, like, if you see an event that you potentially love for the Kayak Adventure Series or interested in, we're not going back there again. Like, it's not going to be, I won't say ever, but it will be a large time period before we ever go back somewhere for the Kayak Adventure Series. So you might want to, YOLO, like Wolf of Walmart saying, it's too short, and go for it because we picked these spots for a reason. And then of course, next year, that one local event that you maybe missed or whatever, you can go back and hit those same lakes and stuff. Anyway, so that's kind of the thoughts on that. You want to get Ryan in here now that we've busted the myth that I'm not fishing these events. I'm fishing Bassmaster. That's what I'm fishing.
Yeah.
Maybe Lake Murray. That one I've procrastinated too, just because schedule with the family has kind of been tricky because I'm doing Columbus. I did Columbus and then I did Indianapolis next weekend.
Yeah.
Then I'd be gone another weekend and the weekend. So
it's a tough buy-in because I was like, I just got back from Costa Rica, back in the swing of things. And it's like, oh, do you want to go do this thing? And it's like,
I know. We'll see what happens. I might do it. If I do the Bassmaster Lake Murray, honestly, it's going to be, I'm driving down on Friday and I'm not doing any pre-fishing. I'm just cold turkey, just fishing.
YOLO.
Yeah, exactly. Doing it.
Have you ever fished it before though? That's the thing.
Yeah, I fished that lake before. Yeah.
See?
So I have some experience. I've got a little experience. So, all right. We busted that myth. Let's get this out here. Let's get to the main event. And that would mean we pull this one up. Our GoPro main event here. Let's bring in the man. What is he doing? He looks like he's... Oh, you brought him in. I brought him in. There he is. He's on the road, it looks like.
I am passenger princess at the moment.
You doing where?
I'm on passenger princess right now.
Passenger princess.
That's
All right. Well, so let's talk about this topic today here. What do you think, Jake? What's the main thing where you want to hit up Ryan about?
Well, Ryan has had an interesting few months because he recently joined on with Noisy River Outdoors, which makes a fairly unique style kayak that I don't think many people, it kind of blends the line of like kayak and I don't know what you would call it, like catamaran or whatever, the double pontoon style watercraft, and it's started an interesting debate on like the styles of kayaks because it's different than what a lot of people fish out of, and he's actually found a lot of success recently on his platforms, his social media, kind of showing it off. I think he has had like multiple videos going viral, and it's honestly sparked a lot of debate even on like the main Facebook pages. Like I've seen a lot of people talking about it, like, is this tournament legal? And I think it's a good thing to talk about here because yes, it will be tournament legal for us. We allow a lot of different styles of kayaks, even canoes are legal in Kayak Adventure Series. So it'll be an interesting one to talk about. I think it'll answer a lot of questions people might have about the different styles of kayaks and kind of break into what the difference is between like paddle, motor, non-motor. There's so many different ways you can approach kayaking now. Like it's unreal how far the sport has gone. So
yeah, it really has. So Ryan, you got a lot of road noise there. I guess you're on the road probably maybe the whole time, I guess, or
I'll only be on the road about another 5 minutes and I'll be done. So.
Okay, cool. So probably will come off a little better. But yeah, I think our whole discussion today is basically just gonna be here. Tell you what, I'm gonna mute Ryan while I talk there. So that way it's not noisy. So basically today's discussion is kind of like about all the different watercraft, kind of where it's going. Is that right? I mean, basically like and what we're kind of allowing and where to kind of draw the line in these tournaments with what's legal, what's not. Because we had Feel Free on rolling from Feel Free, remember? And it was we talked about the Johnny boat that they make, and then I think they had to go in and change it to Johnny Kayak or whatever to make it legal in some tournaments. But it's the same specs as a lot of the popular boats out there. Some of your new canoes, your Native Titans, your Hobies, bigger boats like that. So, but this Flip Cat definitely is gotten a lot of attention for being a unique contraption, if you want to call it that. There's a lot of like moving parts, but it folds up. It's pretty cool. Into where you can looks like a cooler, you know what I mean? Like basically it flips out, which I think is cool. The more things like this that we, have for consumers to have, for us, we're definitely going to allow this in competition. You can show it on there. We're definitely going to allow this in competition, but basically the more options we have, inflatables. Think about inflatables. You got the one that Jeff Little's doing with Innovative Sportsman, the Osprey. You got these Flip Cats. You got the regular rotomolded stuff. You got, what else do you have? The ones that are more like boat-like, like your bigger new canoes and that Johnny boat, things like that. To us, it's all basically kind of like has an element of human powered involved in it pretty much. And it's all kind of, they're made and by the companies that kind of are supporting this sport, basically small watercraft, kayaks, boats, whatever you want to call them. They're technically not kayaks by definition anyway. None of these bigger ones are really, but that's fine. Okay. That's fine because they're comfortable. We love it. And they're supporting us, and it's kind of going to be legal. We're even allowing canoes in the series. If you look at our rules, we've talked about that before. There's no reason not to. I mean, I think the people, if 5 people at an event fish out of a canoe and they see all of what we have for these cool watercraft, they're more likely those 5 are going to convert to a kayak than all of a sudden a bunch of kayak anglers who are already there with all their boats say, oh my goodness, that canoe is incredible. I think I'm going to ditch this kayak and go buy a canoe, so we're just trying to get the most people in there in these small watercraft and just to go adventure and have fun and catch fish. That's essentially it. So Ryan, I'll let you see if how it sounds now. You can come in here and explain a little bit about this watercraft.
Yeah. All right. So kind of, I want to touch a little bit on what you're saying about, turning legal. Is it going to be turning legal? Because really, I don't think that there would be any main event that would disqualify it as a tournament legal watercraft. And Jake and I have had this conversation. Is that it's very similar to a Blue Sky from Jackson.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a catamaran. But outside of it being a catamaran, it's still within the dimensions of what a tournament legal kayak would be. Tournament legal, that's not to say that if I go talk to Steve over at Bass that he's going to be like, yeah, totally. But I've already cleared it with like Moyak specifically. I'll be fishing a tournament series with Moyak out of the Flip Cat. So yes, it is going to be tournament legal, but I was also saying that anytime I'm going to hit a new trail, I would definitely be trying to talk to the tournament director and make sure that it's clear. Because the other side is kind of what you're saying was it's kind of becoming not necessarily a kayak tournament series anymore. It's a small watercraft series anymore. People are fishing out of bass raiders in kayak tournaments anymore. So small watercraft tournaments is really the appropriate term for it anymore, because there's just not a kayak series anymore. But there are kayak series around the country, but they're always small, they're always local, and you're not going to be taking any real money out of it. That's just purely as a competitor, you just want to compete it that way, then that's great. But the small watercraft tournament series is really where I think the sport has gone, and is going to continue to go for a little.
Yeah, it was a fun weekend though. Yeah, dude, it was super fun. I enjoyed
What's
it.
That was weird.
Yeah, I think one of their previews started playing some audio, but yeah, it's an interesting kayak or watercraft, I guess is the best way to describe it. And like, to kind of touch on that topic, we were saying Jeff Little's fishing out of like the inflatable. If you look at like some of the inflatables that are out there too, you've got the NRS makes one that's a pure kayak, but we were looking at like the Neptune watercraft, which is one that Eco Fishing sells, and that is a 13-foot inflatable kayak, but it's a 2-person kayak. Obviously, you can fish one person out of it. I mean, there's plenty of people who fish out of like giant watercrafts, but if you look at like the dimensions on it, it's 13 by I think like 40 something, which isn't that much different than a pro angler. So this big inflatable watercraft theoretically is really no different than like your pro anglers. It's just the fact that it looks, different than anything we see. And I think that's the interesting thing here is like
it
what
looks
truly
like a boat.
Yeah, I know it's going to be tricky. We got to get to a point where we define it. And I'll probably have to go back in the rules here after this year and really like, we're probably just gonna have to put some very clear, I don't know, verbiage, and then anything that new that gets created like this will just have to be case by case basis.
Right.
But because you don't want to push into the point where you've got people using something that they're just standing up on the front deck with a foot pedal that it just looks like a bass boat. I mean, we're at least still seated back in, you know what I mean, that center position in these things. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Yeah,
I was talking about here. This is the Neptune Pro 400.
Yeah.
And if you look at this on paper, you're like, oh, that looks like a boat. But then you look at like the actual pictures of this craft. I mean, it's a kayak. Like it is the same dimensions as a lot of the big kayaks. I mean, it's a little bit wider, but most of that is like the pontoon style. But like you can get 2 people in it. But I mean, you could see it there on top. Like that's theoretically just an inflatable kayak. So it's interesting where the sport is kind of going, because like you can see there, like it's not a big kayak, like it's not a big watercraft, but I could see there being some people who are debating whether or not that's within the grounds of what they want in tournaments. So I'm curious what the major trails would say about something like this. So
yeah, I mean, if it meets the length and width and all that specs, then I don't think there's really anything much they can say. But that's where we got to start defining it a little bit better, clear. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But either way, I want to keep this. I mean, the kayak is the majority of all that everyone's fishing out of probably is like, more of a kayak, especially in the Kayak Adventure series. So it makes sense to call it kayak fishing still, even if every one of them isn't really like by the truest of definition. But I mean, what are you going to do? Say kayak kayak fishing or inflatable, or you can't you need to just condense it into some one term. So I still like terming it kayak fishing, but basically it's just about getting out there and exploring wild places in small watercraft. But the thing to me that where you got to draw the line is when something is so. If something were to give someone such an insane advantage to where every tournament is won with that watercraft or style or something, it's kind of like why they thought they needed to outlaw the A rig or whatever, or all this live scope talk, which kind of turned a lot of the pro bass fishing into a little bit, we all know it's true, a little bit like more boring to watch kind of thing. Well, and it also wins pretty much every tournament. So to me, that's where I think you got to do something about it, because now the sport is a little bit one dimensional. It's like you took away the pass in football. Now it's just a run play. Every play's a run play. If you didn't allow the pass, well, you kind of, I mean, if the running worked better than the pass, let's say, for some reason in the rules, running was 10 times more likely to win a game and everyone just ran in football, right? But you could still pass. But that was kind of what we want to avoid. We want to avoid one style or method of fishing in our tournaments to be so dominant to where it's boring. It's, it's like boxing, right? It's just boxing. But then the UFC is every style of fighting, jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and kickboxing and wrestling, everything all rolled into one. And what's cool is, and there's certainly some, you're probably a hardcore UFC person on here that is going to say, well, they're mostly dominated by, jiu-jitsu or whatever. But that's fine. But as long as it's not 90% of the events are won in a certain way or certain style, now it's cool because everyone gets to use their own personality. And Ryan's got this cool new thing, and somebody else has got an inflatable, and others are in traditional boats that are, manufactured by a lot of the sponsors of the KS, and that's fine.
Right.
But we want to see you guys all come into the octagon and battle it out and see what comes out on top. And we're hoping the top 10 is littered with all different styles: electronics guy, lake guy, river, creek, backwater. So anyway, that's our goal for this.
Somebody
and that's
on
where
a
I'll
paddleboard,
draw the line
you know?
on a paddleboard. But I will draw the line. If there's anything that actually
Right.
gives someone, it looks like it's no longer in the spirit of what we're doing, small watercraft kayak, if we won't allow it.
Yeah, and Wolf of Wall Street asked, is that a outboard on that inflatable I just showed? That is an outboard. However, I mean, there's a lot of kayaks that are rated for outboards. Like a lot of the new canoes can have a small outboard. I mean, you could put an outboard on a Shoaly. If you really wanted to, you could make it work.
Yeah.
Do you recommend it? Probably not. But I mean,
you could.
People are always going to push the envelope when it comes to small watercraft, especially kayaks. And it's not that crazy to see a small outboard on it. I think Newport makes a small little electric outboard that's apparently pretty good for some of these. So
yeah. I mean, there's definitely that. But Brian, I think it's cool though that like an inflatable that they can fold up. It just gives people another chance, another way to come to an event easily without, if they have constraints with their family, needing to be in the SUV or whatever, they can put that on the cooler thing on the back or whatever. They can drive to an event, and they got a boat. Inflatables are the same way. I mean, we just want to encourage all different forms of creativity, because that's what this series is really all about, being creative on how to find your fish. And if you, like electronics are creative, you know what I mean? LiveScope is not easy to use. People, it definitely wins a lot of tournaments, but you got to be creative and learn where the fish are. And creativity could be, you do like the opposite. Everyone goes one way, everyone leaves from the ramp here. You turn around, you scan the ramp, the fish are right there. I mean, that is a sneaky and creative way. So we want to highlight all those, creative things.
Yeah.
And I think that go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian.
So I was going to say, the thing that's neat about the Flip Cat is that it's going to give more people the ability to get involved with kayaks that couldn't before, because I've had this conversation so many times since this thing's gone so big on the internet was, well, why would I pay $4,500 for this kayak when I can go buy a Hobie Outback or a Hobie Pro Angler for like the same price? Well, the difference is that you can live in a condo, or you can live in a house without a garage, and you can roll this right through your front door and store it in your closet.
Yeah.
Where you can't do that with a Hobie. You can't do that with a traditional kayak.
Right.
So this gives people that don't have the means or the ability to store a traditional kayak, that want a more solid platform, the ability to have this in their home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to play the video Ryan has that kind of went viral, if he's cool with it, and it will kind of give people an idea of like the load process and just like everything.
Yeah, you can do it.
I like Wolf of Walmart. It's like mac and cheese, my man. It's cheese and noodles. Choose your own cheese, choose your own noodles, but the end product is still the same. Just cheese and noodles. Yeah, you can play it if you want.
So we can kind of see there. I mean, it might be a little small, but that's Instagram for you. They like to.
So another question I've got about this is, that's 146 pounds. That's your dry weight on this thing. So yeah, it's a little heavy, but you've got wheels on it. It rolls right down to the lake like that. You see, you lift it up and then you put it right back down, and it's all leverage. So you're never having to take that 146 pounds straight up and hold it. So
yeah, and I'll say this to what Jake, what you just said, actually, Ryan, about it. This allows someone who, because I mean, this is a very specialty product. I think this company you're working with, they're not thinking they're about to just take over the whole majority of the market share. This is very specialty for people that have a small apartment, people that have a vehicle, constraints, things like that. This is not going to be a, some giant massive seller or whatever in terms of number of units. However, it's what you just said. It gets more people into the sport, involved, and it gives them a chance to be a part of it. And that's pretty cool when you see products like that, out there. So, there's, no doubt about it. We want to just get more people in the sport, because then one day somebody gets a bigger house and a garage or a truck. And you know what? They turn around, they buy that Old Town, or they buy that new canoe or Bonafide or whatever. That's fine. It's not like, what's cool about this series is it's okay for us to talk about and even show this kind of stuff like this. We have our own sponsors, and they're all secure in the fact that, you know what, the more we can get people into the sport and give them a chance to be a part of this, the better, because no one just buys one kayak and has it for 30 years. Nobody. You're going to buy a Pelican or something, inexpensive from Walmart or Dick's or Academy, something that's made, somewhere that's so cheap that it's just the only thing you could afford when you just get out of college. And that's fine. What's wrong with that? Like nothing's wrong with that, because it gets them in the sport. And that's all we're saying here. Let's just get as many people in the sport, because guess what? In 2 years or a year after they get that, they're going to buy that Bonafide or the new canoe or the Crescent, you know what I mean? Or whatever, you name the brand, they're going to keep upgrading to what suits their life better at that stage of life. So this is going to help some people out there for sure. But I don't want to touch on it too much more, other than just we can still have a general conversation about the kayaks and what you guys feel. What do you guys feel like it's gonna? Is any like, go back to the UFC reference? Is any one style of fighting or fishing in this standpoint? Do you guys see, with the way our rules are written, with being able to access anywhere publicly, portaging over logs and natural obstacles, rapids, things that you don't feel comfortable staying in your kayak and running and going down, or trying to go up or under a log or whatever, like with those rule set, do you guys feel, how do you guys feel most of these events could be won, or is it just going to be very dependent on each stop and situation?
I want to touch on one more thing. It's kind of relative to that. That's directly related to this flip cat. So Jake showed one of the videos that showed me rolling this through some pretty rough terrain to get down to the riverbank. And one of the things I got talked about the most was it needed upgraded wheels because it's got, the small kind of tug wheels on them. This kayak you can actually get, they're still finishing the final development, but there's going to be an upgraded wheel with an attachment where you can tow this behind a bicycle or an e-bike, and you can reach these accesses, kind of like what you're talking about, that are so far out of the reach of a guy that's going to put his kayak on a cart and tow it 2 miles down this trail to go launch at. And I think that's a great advantage that something like this gives you that you don't have in a traditional kayak. Whereas to say, like, is that a advantage that's going to be just massive to where you're going to go out and you're going to win all these tournaments because you can reach harder points of access because you didn't have to go up the river. You just towed it with a bike up to where the good water was. I don't think it's that big of an advantage, but it will give you easier access to places that are hard to reach in a traditional kayak.
And that is something that we've talked about, is the e-bike towing. I think that's actually kind of ingenious if you think about it, because like, especially I'm thinking of lacrosse, there's like 2 or 3 accesses where I'm like, man, towing in your kayak with an e-bike would have been, it would have been legal. I'm not suggesting like some sort of like weird illegal thing, but there's some accesses where that would be like a pretty cool thing to have, and it would be an advantage for the people who did have it. But I don't think like you're necessarily at a disadvantage if you don't have it. And that's what, is interesting about our series in general, is just like, you can do it however you want. You're just not going to be limited if you have the means to go into thicker stuff, because like, I always go back to the Wapapello Poplar Bluff event. Like, you could win it on the lake, live scoping by the dam, or you could go up one of the rivers. It's not really, I don't think anyone's really at an advantage. It's just going to be like how you decide to tackle the puzzle, essentially.
Yeah.
Because there's not always one solution that is perfect.
Yeah, because you think about it, the person who's towing something in like that, most of the time, they're probably not going to have a motor. There's going to be some light kayak or inflatable or whatever. But the person with the motor could motor, most likely there's a ramp somewhere close, an access somewhere where within the 30-minute window, you have to get on the water and go, right? With a motor, Torpedo, my 1103 is 6.2 miles an hour. I usually can get like 3 miles away in that 30-minute window that I've got, so you're still going to be able to get to that water that way. Or so either I don't think it's like you're saying a big advantage either way, or is going to be a giant player either way, because the other biggest issue is just because you find the few accesses in this entire hour either way radius, right, that you have to do something crazy like that to get to. Unfortunately, it just doesn't always mean there's magically these winning fish there. It's just a myth.
Mm-hmm.
We should put the Mythbusters, Boondocks Mythbusters marquee back up on the screen, because it's just a myth that, like, it just doesn't always work. But as you guys know, the one time it does, that's all that could be the difference. You know what I mean? That one time it could matter. And that's why you got a lot of bass boat anglers that are sponsored by Power Pole, right? Tons of them. But they rarely use those things. But the one time that it helped them win to sight fish a shallow water tournament or whatever, and held them still in the wind, it paid for and above and beyond the price of that thing tenfold. So
I mean, that's a
kind
good
of
point. Is there, I think about it, like, everyone complains about live scoping, right? Everyone's live scoping, you watch it on there. What is the one thing every single one of those boats has? Power poles, 2 of them, 2 Raptors, you know, whatever you want to call them, sitting on the back there. And, you know, they all have them, and that's for good reason, because you get into a scenario where you're fishing shallow, guess what? You're going to use them, and they're going to be a huge advantage. So I think that's that was actually an interesting point, because, like, live scope is the dominant thing right now, but are power poles, are they a bad advantage? You know, it's just, you could argue all technology has changed fishing. Like, I've seen people say that in kayak fishing they'd rather have their spot lock over the live scope, which is kind of surprising to me, but I've seen multiple people say that. And I've never used spot lock on a kayak. I've used it on a boat, but never on a kayak, so I can't really talk to it. But, like, I can see where sometimes spot lock might actually be a bigger advantage than live scope, especially if you're fishing like a river where you know it's reloading and you don't necessarily need live scope. And I know that some of the California kayak trails actually only let you pick one. So you either get spot lock or you get live scope. You can't have both, because that's against their rules. Which is interesting that that's where they decided to draw the line.
Yeah.
And then you remember Susquehanna. I spot locked on a spot there at the Susky and caught 3 limits on the second day there in an hour, you know. Whereas you couldn't hold on that spot, so you kind of floated down and found your fish somewhere else.
Yeah, so essentially what I ended up doing, which is, it's a good example. I couldn't stay in the spot. It was too windy, too much current, too windy. I was in my shoalie. So I decided to put on a spinnerbait and burn banks. I ended up catching a couple 17s just fishing fast, fishing down the banks, whereas, you were spot locked catching similar fish. So there's always like a different approach you can use to win the game. Like there's not just one strategy. You don't have to run the ball. You don't have to throw the ball. Maybe you can do a little bit of both, but
yeah, exactly. The this live scope thing's interesting, because I'm going to pull this up here. David Dudley posted something on his, Major League Fishing Pro. David Dudley posted something about, forward facing sonar, and basically was just saying, like, you could see when you sight fish with your sunglasses, you see fish. You don't always catch all the fish you see. And that's what kind of you see is happening with live scope. They're seeing fish, everywhere, of course, and you don't catch everyone you see. You know what I mean? And so he's saying kind of like, and then he said, kind of makes you think, it's a kind of a pro forward facing sonar post, in a way. But in my argument, I've replied to him, and he replied back and thought it was interesting. I just said, yeah, but golf is rolling back the ball for a reason. I'm not saying we're at that point, but I am saying it's ridiculous to not allow a tunnel hole or a jet or a rig or any other simple and many like inexpensive tools that everyone can afford, but to continue to allow whatever advancement in electronics is made until the element of, quote, unknown is completely gone in a sport which has always been about the mystery and who can figure out the unknown and make it known by proving the unknown by catching the fish. It seems to contradict what made this sport so great to begin with. And yeah, we're not there yet. And like I said, I don't mind forward facing sonar at all. And I'm even for it, but I'm just more against it. If more against the fact that if it's legal, then why are so many of these other inexpensive tools, illegal, when forward facing sonar is by far more effective than those other tools could ever be combined? And he said, wow, Drew, that's a very good perspective. And that's what I think the Kayak Adventure Series is, the perspective we're trying to show. We don't mind, and we love forward facing sonar, and we don't mind, and we love unique things that Ryan showed us here today, and the inflatables and the, all the cool light and, inexpensive kayaks, that all of our sponsors, of the series make. They're awesome. But when you're kind of forced to do one or the other, and that may not be your style, then it kind of is like, well, it kind of gets a lot of people out of the game and or forces people to spend a lot of money that they really don't have to spend to catch a bass. It's just not the truth. So
I mean, that is a good point. Like I had posted a video on my personal social yesterday, kind of joking about how like anglers are, we spend all this money to maybe catch some fish, right? Obviously just a joke, but a lot of people were like, oh, if you spend a lot of money, you're not really an angler. And then on the flip side, there's people like, if you complain about money, you're not really an angler because fishing is just expensive. And I kind of like fall in the middle. I like using fun, cool stuff. I've got a Garmin unit. I've got LiveScope. I don't use it a ton, but when I do, I enjoy it. But I enjoy going down the river. I think that, you don't need a $400 Metanium DC to catch fish. But if you want to, sure, you might have some advantages, like if it's windy. But like you could go out there with a Zebco and catch the same fish, using a paddle kayak with, a sun dolphin. So like, I don't necessarily think you have to spend a lot of money to be successful. And I think that that's the thing that I worry about sometimes is like, where do you draw the line? Because like we're outlawing some of the more inexpensive stuff, isn't allowed, but you can use the expensive stuff, right? Like I think there's like a kind of an imbalance right now. I think that comment you had really kind of hit on that too. So, because like, remember when side scanning came out, everyone was mad. They're like, oh, it's taking away the hunt, right? They thought that it was just making it too easy to go out and spend 8 hours of pre-fishing, scanning the lake with side scan. You didn't have to do your research. You could just use the electronics to do the research for you, which, weird take to begin with, but that there was a big amount of people who didn't like side scan. That kind of died down after a few years. You don't really see that anymore. Then LiveScope comes out, you see the same thing again. So I don't know. I think that it's weird to me that, like Drew was saying in that comment, that they outlaw the A-rig, they outlaw, the jet boats, stuff like that, which is a disadvantage 80% of the time. But the 20% of the time it is an advantage. It's just too much for them, right? So,
yeah. I mean, if Bassmaster tournament director Lisa Talmadge, I sat with her at the Night of Champions dinner. That for winning the AOI, I fortunately was able to get invited to the Night of Champions dinner. Eric Siddiqui was there too because he won the championship for Bassmaster that year. So he and I are there, and I'm sitting next to Lisa at my table, and this kind of came up, and she said, man, it is a headache on her. The fact that so many times at events, she has Bassmaster anglers come to her and say, is this legal at this tournament? Because different states have different rules and how many hooks and things like that. Or is this kind of legal, that legal? And she's just like, obviously she doesn't really know all the fishing is like, I guess, rigs and things as detailed as the anglers do. That's their job. She just wants to run a tournament. And she said, she kind of was like, look, I wish it would just all be legal and allowed to whatever the state laws. Obviously, you still got to, listen to those and I guess have the event according to the state laws. But anyway, she was the same thing. Like, hey, what should be all allowed? To me, that's just the whole thing. Like, LiveScope I'm for it as long as this other stuff, which is what we're doing in the Kayak Adventure series. Of course, you can still get to other shallow water fish where the kayak is kind of the best tool for that. So it kind of balances it out the LiveScope. And then you see in the bass boat where they can't really get there. You got like Keith Pochet and John Cox that maybe pull it off, but that's like 2 out of 100. You know what I mean? So it's not really a player, So
yeah.
that's kind of the thing is just, I feel like it'd be cool if they would bring some of the other stuff back, and let those shallow water tactics have a chance, or inexpensive like an A-rig. It's not that, because the fish are used to it. We all know now that it's not you're not blowing away every tournament with the A-rig. It's just not going to happen because they already have gotten used to it. So now there will be events that it would play, but what's the difference? There's events where floating frog is going to play, and then events where it's not. You know what I mean? What's the difference? As long as it's not going to dominate a vast majority of the time, like you're in the 70, 80, 90% of the time, then it becomes a cool, different way to score, like in football, for example, a different way to do, to score and make the game unique, 2-point conversion or an extra point. You could choose either way. You could kick field goals. You can do onside kicks. You can, you know what I mean? Like go for it on 4th down as opposed to not. Just all the different ways you can get the ball, move the ball down the field. It's just the diversity is what makes it cool in all sports, not when they're just singular focused where you're kind of, okay, we know how this is going to happen this time. It's kind of boring, but that's all I wish we could just allow some other stuff back in. So, but
yeah.
Yep. Thoughts, Ryan?
I mean, kind of like what Jake said. Like I like the forward-facing sonar, but the flip side of that is I hate throwing an A-rig. There's a lot of people that don't want to throw an A-rig, and the weird thing is I've actually heard more people that just don't want to throw it that are against it because they don't want to throw it and they know how productive it can be. And I think it's the same thing on the forward-facing sonar thing. Is some people don't want to learn it. Some people don't want the option, I guess, to buy it because they don't want to, so they feel that it shouldn't be allowed. And I think that that's just a wrong perspective to have on it. But unfortunately, that's just a perspective that people choose to have.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely if you don't have the money for it and you can't kind of access and fish in some of the shallow water that we're allowing people to do in the series, I can see where it would be a little bit disheartening to folks like, man, I don't know if I don't have the money for it. I can't compete because it's probably going to get one with that technology. So I get it. I like Steve's comment here. Steve Baker, he says, I love everything being legal, but still the biggest advantage is your own brain. I wish mine was better than it is. LOL. So that's true. I mean, your own brain is really because you have to know where to go to point the live scope. You know what I mean? You have to know where to go to, and understand where the fish move and migrate and why they're in certain areas and what baits to throw and all that. You still have to use your own brain and figure that out and dial that in. And so and honestly, nowadays that so many areas are kind of like, there's so much education out there. They're kind of more obvious. I feel like your anglers are more piled up in certain places, and your own brain, again, will tell you at that point, they're about to cannibalize all their fish. And even though that was an A+++ spot, it's about to be reduced for everyone to a B spot. And maybe they all, or most of them, cash checks from there, but it's no longer the winning spot. Now your brain is the winning spots, actually these B spots that are unknown or not really unknown, but just not really as focused on by others. And then tournament day rolls around. You're the only one that shows up there. Now you have a B spot all to yourself, and it turns into being a winner. So,
well, live scope can kind of be a trap too, right? So like,
oh yeah,
I've had live scope on my kayak for a long time. Like I had it before it was really like super mainstream on kayaks, right? Because like my mount is actually a boat mount that was converted into a kayak mount. And I learned early on that if you chase live scope fish, you could go in there and essentially, you could essentially go in there and spend 8 hours fishing for fish that don't want to eat, right? That don't want to bite. And you've just wasted your whole day on these fish that you saw on the live scope, but they have no chance. You have no chance of catching. They're not eating. They're not active. They're just hanging out with their guys. They may have ate yesterday, and they're full and they're lethargic. But you're still chasing these fish because you see them on the live scope. You're spending this time. You're investing the time into these fish. So I think one of the things that I learned using live scope for all those seasons was that you got to know when to fold them. You can't go all in on these fish that may bite, they may not bite. So, I mean, there is an experience aspect that goes into that. I think you see a lot of pros doing it. Like you watch them, they're spending hours on these fish and they might not bite till the last hour, which is crazy. Like that's a huge gamble. Could you imagine looking at fish for, what do you get to fish in bass and MLF? It's like 9 hours of time on the water, somewhat spending 90% of that not catching these fish because they won't bite until that 2 to 3 p.m. window or whatever, which is crazy to me. I mean, that's a huge gamble. You're literally staking your career on that. So there is there is a big brain aspect to, all forms of fishing, but like live scoping in general is it can be a trap. So
yeah. It's just going to keep growing, like getting better too. That's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. Where my comment about there's a reason why golf is rolling the golf ball back. I think starting in 2026 or something. It's like they're giving all the old golf balls that have been made or whatever, and all the time to get out there, get sold, get used. And then all the manufacturers have to conform right to this ball that only has so much, whatever, like pop. So, so, I mean, they're rolling it back because it's changed the game. The original way the game was meant to be played, it's all just smash as far as you can now and hit a wedge, so, and you can't just keep extending the course forever, because where does it end? You just keep, and every course can't be extended. You only have so much land. They can't just keep pushing tee boxes back when there's an interstate right there. So you got to keep the game, the sport. And so that's what I think we're trying to do with the Kayak Adventure Series, because at some point it'll get so clear that the thing will actually show you what's a bass and what's not. It'll say bass on the screen, or crappie, or muskie, or whatever. You can start to tell now, but just think about it. I mean, think 30, 40 years in the future. It's going to be so specific, and you're going to be able to see what's the difference between that and a video. It's just a live video camera at that point, So
yeah, I mean, it already kind of exists. I think
it does.
the whole technology for that exists. It's just not practical to bring to consumer yet, because like we'll get like submarine mapping and like would they go in there and they like show you the bottom contours and stuff. I think once that becomes more mainstream and cheaper and to manufacture, you're going to see it trickle down to the consumer. So maybe you get like some Apple Vision Pro things on, and like
that's what it's going to be.
Wearing those, and it's like you need to throw here. You need to throw white. And
I mean, I like Wolf of Walmart's comment here. I feel like forward-facing sonar is more difficult on a kayak, seeing as we're basically just floating around like a leaf. You have to keep adjusting transducer, and it's hard to throw a lure with one hand. And it is true. I think it is more challenging on a kayak, really, even though you have, live scope and motors that can hold us in positions. It still is more challenging. There's no doubt about it. It's not as easy as, so I don't think
that's where spot lock kind of comes in. And, I touched on like how some trails are banning it. You could either have live scope or spot lock, but you can't have both. But I mean, I think both is a huge advantage, right? Like literally like lock on the fish and chill. Whereas like when I use my live scope in the Shoalie, for instance, I got a Newport. So like if I see a fish, I look up, grab my rod. Next thing you know, I'm 10 feet away. So
yeah, it's true. I mean, Ryan here just says, good point, Drew. We have other things to worry about than what people are using, et cetera. Let's just go out there and have fun. How you win is how you win. That's the way I see it. I've never once cared or thought about, or said, because I'm a shallow water, skinny River Creek, I've never once thought or even said like, we need to ban live scope, or when someone wins with live scope or beats me, in a tournament, never once. Cause I'm not worried about what they're doing. I don't care. It's, again, unless every tournament is in the kayak world is won that way, all of them, then we have a problem probably. Like then the sport is no longer kind of the sport. Like originally it was meant to be played. Like when you go out and do it on a Saturday and, just you go fish whatever's legal, right? You access wherever's legal, and that's kind of what rules are for, to keep the sport, before it was even a sport, what made it cool and as an activity, why people did it. Then when it becomes a sport, rules are meant to keep it to its truest form of what it originally was. And in kayak fishing, I certainly feel like you can't eliminate that skinny, shallow water, because that's where kayak fishing started to begin with, and why, wherever boats couldn't go is why we got these kayaks, right? I mean, you're the real yak dragger, Ryan, like for a reason, right? It's funny. Your name is that, because that's where we started dragging in, and that's kind of where it grew first. And of course it morphed into these mini boats that we take on the lakes and fish with them, kind of like a bass boat does now, which is fine, because that just means that it just grew the sport even bigger. But we can't forget where we came from, and hopefully keep the sport, which a big part of the sport in the Kayak Adventure Series was that camaraderie at the beginning of all this, the fun campouts and the get together, the hangout. And that's kind of what we're doing with these events. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm excited. So you guys have any other thoughts on that before we move on to Ryan? I don't know if you got to get going at any point or what your schedule's like.
Yeah, but, I need to hop off. I got to get my kid settled down, so get him down for a nap.
Awesome, man. We'll look forward to seeing you at some of the events. Thanks for hopping on with us.
All right. Later, guys.
All right. See you. All right. So the last thing I was going to do here is we're going to have a segment that is called Viewer Voicemail. And I'll pull it up here. It is sponsored by Yak Attack. viewer voicemail presented by Yak Attack. Now, I'm still trying to figure out, and Billy was going to help me with this. I think he will. There's someone out here watching knows the answer to this, but there's a Google call-in number somewhere you can set up a number where people can call in and leave voicemails, So, but Ryan from RJM Fishtail sent us one already today, a topic just we can go ahead and cover, and we'll post it on social media what that number is for our call-in line. And then we'll get that out so that next week you guys can call in, leave a voicemail. We can play it and answer some questions or talk about that topic you're calling in about. But he says, here, right now, if I couldn't figure out a way to download it, I'm just going to play it through here. So hopefully we can hear it.
Hey guys, this is Ryan from RJM Fishtails. I'm just wondering how the payout is going to be per event. Is it going to be based on participation, or do you guys have enough sponsorship, etc., to cover the same payout per event so we know what the payouts are going to be, or is it just going to be based on participation? All right, thanks.
Hopefully you guys heard that. Could you hear it or no?
Yep.
All right, good. You guys heard it. Cool. Yeah, basically, so yeah, RJM Fishtails, Ryan says, the payout structure. So what's cool is we finally just got every piece of information we need to give you guys an accurate payout chart. So Amanda Brandon over at Real Tournament Management has been working hard on that. And it's funny. It's like none of this stuff is as easy as it seems behind the scenes about what we're going to do, because we have to actually know how much money do we get after the Tourney X fees and the stripe fees that get taken out of that money where you guys pay in. So basically what we decided, now that we know what those fees all add up to for every division, think about it. You got the micro bag, you got all this other stuff going on. The team, it's not just super simple. So now that we know that number, we know how much money we actually get and we can actually pay back. So we're pretty much going to take the administrative fees. I don't know the percentages. We haven't gotten that down around there yet, but most big time tournaments like this, it's somewhere around like 85% paid back. And then of course, I would say we're closer to probably, I guess it depends on how you look at it. It could be closer to 90 or 100 when you consider that everybody's getting $100 gift bag and some prizes are getting given away at some of the events too. Most of the events are just going to be cash, right? I mean, that's like, but I mean, it's all going to be cash for when you place in the top like 10%. But then some places like Way Up High or whatever, or Big Bass, something like that, might get an extra, like a $250 gift card to X sponsor, whatever. So that's all. I mean, that technically should be considered as part of the payout. But in terms of the cash portion, it'll be like 85%, somewhere in there. And then obviously prizes will be thrown in there on top of it. Like someone's going to win a GoPro and a bunch of accessories for the GoPro's Epic Edit, right? Well, that has to get counted as something we're paying out to the angler. So the monetary value for that. So it's probably closer when you add in all that stuff to like 90 or even, who knows, 100%, because the $100 gift bags, tell me if I'm wrong here, but that's like $60,000, right? They're all worth 100. You get 100 of them are given away. There's 600 total. So that's just a payout to just sign up. So anyway, that's kind of how it's going to be done. And we're excited to show you guys that payout chart pretty soon. I would say this week or next, it'll be up on the site. We just have to make our decisions, because we also need to decide, tell you what goes into this. We need to decide, like, well, how much gets held back, for, the championship event, the broodstock. Got to stop saying championship. Again, you don't have to qualify. It's an open event, but the AOYs will be crowned there. So how much gets held back for the AOY prize? How much gets held back for the broodstock event itself? Because that is our finale. We want it to be a little bit bigger and better, right? So little things like that we got to figure out. We have obviously bills to pay. Amanda Brandon and her organization isn't free, of course, and we touched on that earlier. Using her is nice because it keeps me out of the loop for any of the judging, anything like that. There's nobody can say, "Oh, Drew, your favoritism to so and so and so and so who you're buddies with." Well, no. First of all, I would never do that. So, and honestly, I would be harder on any of my friends than easier if I was the tournament director. So they better be thankful. If you're close with me and a friend of mine, you better be actually grateful that Amanda Brandon is running this and not me, because I would be harder on someone that's a friend of mine if it was a 50-50 call that I had to make, right? So, and it also keeps me out of, like we've talked about before, out of the narrative. Let's say Bassmaster or Hobie or KBF or somebody goes to one of these locations that we go to after we kind of hopefully expose some new cool kayak fisheries, right? Well, if they go there, then I don't want anyone to ever say, well, Drew's got all the pins to the GPS points where the the fish are caught. Well, no, I don't, because she's running it, not me, and she has all that information and access and is double checking if, where the fish came from, if we need to ever have someone look at where a fish came from. So anyway, that was a good question by RJ and Fishtails. And I've had a few people ask me about those payout charts, but now we're almost there to having that posted on the site.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people had messaged the Instagram, and I didn't have, in our social media, a couple on Facebook had asked about that, and we didn't have an answer yet, but hopefully all those people who ask will have an answer soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah, that was all I had pretty much. I mean, unless there's anything that we've missed. Then
No, I think it was an interesting discussion today. Like, I think that noisy river is an interesting contraption.
Yeah, no doubt. It is interesting. It brought up an interesting topic, and again, that they're, it's not a product that's probably going to sell to the masses. Of course, it's it's $4,500, and it's but there's certain people that would need that just to get in the game. There's certain
Right.
people that need a $200 and $300 kayak. That's all they can afford just to get in the game.
Well, a
And
lot of
that's good.
bigger guys too like those style of kayaks because they're a little bit more stable, right? Like it's not like you're getting into like a little skinny kayak. It's got more balancing, and I've seen some taller, bulkier dudes prefer that style. I mean, that Blue Sky it's not like super popular, but I've seen them.
Right.
I've seen them. Like I've seen
Yeah.
people out in them. I've seen people online using them quite a bit. So
Mhm.
might not be the best selling, but there is like a niche for that style
Yep.
of kayak.
Hey, if it gets them in the game, that's all. That's
Exactly.
good for the sport, because I'm telling you, everyone knows we buy kayaks every year or two, new stuff, and it just gets them
Not to
at our
mention,
events. Welcome.
You can put something like that in the back of your SUV, your trunk of well, maybe not your trunk of your car, but back of your SUV, which is honestly, if you're traveling a lot, I can see that being a huge benefit. Same thing with like the inflatables. I was kicking myself. I was like, man, when I was in Costa Rica, what if I had an NRS inflatable?
Mhm.
I blow it up
Yeah.
on the beach, and I could just go fish on my own. I don't have to, I went out in a little like an Old Town Ocean kayak. I think that's because Old Town owns them. I
Yeah.
think Ocean Kayak, one of the
Yeah, they
like
do.
old school Ocean
Mhm.
Malibus or whatever. I was out
Oh
there in that,
yeah,
and I was like, man,
Malibu too. Yeah, I the last thing I will show, and it probably should have been done in the news and notes. So remind me, we'll do it next week. But people have been asking, how do you sign up for the team division? So if you're still hanging in here with us, I'll bring this up. This is what Amanda had sent me. It's pretty easy. You just register for the team tournament as normal. Team captain on your Tourney X dashboard, click Create Team button, select the team tournament, and then create your team name. Click Create Team, and then you'll be redirected to the Tourney X dashboard. Second angler then logs in, and once they go to their dashboard and click Join Team, you just click the Join Team button, and then click the team you want to join, and then that is it. The team is complete. So guys, get into that team division. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait. The X2 Power Team Division. So that's going to be fun. Cannot wait to see what happens on that. And yeah, I think next week, I'm not sure. Maybe Alex Rudd's going to possibly come on and talk to him about that. And then I'll see him at the Indy show. But we're definitely going to have a micro bag show that focuses all on micro bags. We'll get some baits. Maybe we'll have John Dalton on from Creek Fishing Adventures. Perfect. He's always fishing for little bass and creek chubs and bluegill and everything in this creek, so we can have him on. I'll try to talk to him. We'll have yeah, go ahead.
I did talk to Jonathan from Eco, and he was willing to come on next week and talk about the different kayak brands. He ships more kayaks than anyone I know. I mean, that's his game.
Yeah.
And we could kind of go through, because a lot of we're getting sponsored by a lot of the most popular brands, and there's pros and cons to all of them, but like it's tough picking a kayak. There's a lot of choices now, and I think kind of highlights what we just talked about today.
Yeah,
So
have him on for a quick segment, talk about that. That'd be cool. And pick his brain on different things. And then we got to have some on rules and boundaries and getting into the nitty gritty of some of that stuff and the AOI format. If you go on our website and read the rules, you'll see there's little videos peppered throughout those rules that help explain, things like the AOI. But in my conversation with Ryan from RJM Fishtails earlier today on the phone, he had said, man, you guys have explained this so well that he just was like, I don't really know what is left to be covered, but trust me, we will find all those little things that are left to be covered, because there are definitely, we'll have some of the, like an influencer YouTuber panel on the show. We'll have some top anglers on the show. Bring Russ Snyder's in and some other Jody Queen, Abby Abundanza, just folks that I know that they're fishing some of these events and fish the big national stuff. Robert Weicker, get him on here. We'll talk to an angler panel. We'll have just so many different cool topics to cover at these shows coming up. So, and then of course, when we get a little bit closer to Shoalipalooza, it won't be the official Shoalipalooza preview show, but I want to do another show or a segment with some Georgia anglers and some Shoalipalooza talk. You know what I mean? Get closer to seeing what the current conditions are over there in the rivers, you know, and weather, and water color, temperature. We'll kind of get a little bit of a, I don't know what we'll call that show, Shoalipalooza prep, last prep show or something, you know. So we'll do one of those. That'll be fun. We'll do that before every one of the events and give any last minute updates. So, all right, guys, I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. Don't forget to hashtag Chase the Wild. We'll see you on the Kayak Adventure Series, Chasing the Wild. And Jake, we'll see you probably next week, I guess.
Yep.
All right. See you at Indy if you show up at Indy. Thanks, guys. See ya.